Our lunch is still in the safety zone, because I think it's waiting for it. Barb asked me to focus a bit on what would make an elective fly. And before we had ND students, one of the things I did to keep busy was teach them electives. I wanted to stay engaged in the classroom and not spend too much time away from students, so that was an important thing to do. Just in terms of personal experience, once we launched the ND program in September 2006, I got to be involved in designing and delivering, sometimes just on the design part, a lot of the time on deliver all of the new classes that we did that were totally new. There was lots of things our students do, like anatomy, and actually tons of things they do that are shared with DC students, but there was a lot of new material. And those who joined us had the same experience of rolling out new courses, but there was every semester 2 or 3 new things that we were doing. So through a really sophisticated model called trial and error, I've learned some lessons about, more lessons about what will work with students and what doesn't. And it's actually nice these days. We're at a nice boring period where everything is just teaching again and trying to make it better, and it's nice. But this electives, when you focus on electives, is a good opportunity for some new things. So obviously planning the plan, we've heard lots of good things about creating a good syllabus, but obviously a good place to start is this question of what do I want these students to take with them into the clinic from this experience. Now you could broaden that because some of them might be taking an elective you created because they want to go on and become heavier scholar practitioners someday. So maybe it's not in 8 months they're going to use what you're giving them. But a good general place to start for your average AUHS student, because phase 3 of the program is clinical internship, is what could they take this, what could they take in the clinic with them, or use in the clinic if they're already there. Quote from Harry Beecher Stowe's son, C.E. Stowe, common sense is the knack of seeing things as they are and doing things as they ought to be done, in the sense of what can you accomplish in the time you have, and what are your students capable of, given the fact that they have a 28-credit-hour workload, which, has been commented on already this morning. So, in other words, for topics that I'm interested in, that I willingly ask for as my assignment, I'm an enthusiast. So, like botanical medicine, therefore, I would like my students on their weekend following Dr. Shields' example and be looking things up. It's not always realistic. Performances are right to demand it, but not always realistic. So given the fact that they have about as high a credit load as really you're going to find anywhere in higher education, looks really realistic in a 30-hour contact course. I think it's important to start with that. I think it was like the first, I did a homeopathic prescribing elective back in 05 and 06, and I realized I was burying them under remedies. A little bit of that was okay, but I realized it was too much. I was trying not to shortchange them. But the course got better with a little more focus to it. Compare these two objectives, or actually, course goals. So compare these sort of overarching goals for a class. By the end of this elective, students will be able to apply naturopathic medical treatments, apply to naturopathic medical treatments, botanical, homeopathy, nutrition, hydrotherapy, physical medicine, based on an EBP approach. That's all they have to do by the end of this elective. Or by the end of this elective, students will have constructed a botanical medicine vet for 2 commonly seen medical conditions. So you can see in terms of deliverables, in terms of what you can honestly measure, in terms of can the student do it or not, and support them in getting there in 2 hours of class meetings a week, or 1 hour. The second one here is obviously a lot more realistic. The problems with the first one, obviously too much, but vague as well, and you can improve the second one, I guess, in some way to clarity, but certainly the first one is vague. That's just time. This image of when I think of the knowledge that my students have to acquire in just over 3.5 years, it makes me think of the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, which takes place, I think, on Coney Island annually. It says you go back to in 1910, some recently naturalized U.S. citizens were having an argument about who's the most patriotic, and they decided to sell it with a hot dog eating contest. So it's growing, and so these people can eat 30 hot dogs in the time frame. I sometimes feel that's what I'm doing to the naturopathic students, in the sense that you're going to be in primary care. Now, we don't really have much of a choice. We don't have federally funded residencies in our fields, and we do succeed with most of the students. Some can't hack it, but we do succeed. So I think it's important to think about what's available in terms of the class time that you're going to get. That attendance requirement that we're getting firm on is going to make that more meaningful. The assignment time, so how much out of class time, if it's 4 hours at home for 2 credits, 2 hours of content in the classroom, so you can impose at least 4 hours of work on them. And the student capacity for additional work. Now, students will often always not do more unless you expect them to, or demand that they do. But there are limits. There are physiological and chronological limits to what people can do in a week. So the capacity for additional work has got some limits. You want to think about the relevance to their internship. And it doesn't, again, it doesn't have to directly support patient care, but we should, think carefully about that, especially in terms of how many students will sign up. So how relevant to the internship do you want this to be? Is it directly applicable, or are you giving them building blocks that will be really important if they want to, maybe become a faculty member or get into a research track later on? They're probably headed for a master's. If they do now, they have that opportunity. Think carefully then about that little course description you write for the syllabus, for the bulletin as well. That's like their guide. So if it's not clear in your little course description that maybe this is very theoretical, you might have some unhappy campers when they, especially if they don't act in the first week, which is their, withdrawal deadline. Now that's a lot tighter, as you know, and by I think the end of week 4, there's no backing out without taking an academic hit. So you want to make that clear at least on the first day where you're going with the material. You think everybody would research that carefully coming in and maybe come and see you and know what they're getting themselves into, but that doesn't always happen. Is it in terms of sufficiency? So are you able to support them with the learning activities? You saw this great wheel that we saw this morning. There's the activities as well as evaluation. So are you able to give them reasonable instruction to support them in achieving the course objectives? And can you evaluate them appropriately? In my 8th try botanical medicine class, the focus of the course is really now somewhat on knowing botanicals, but more so on prescribing, so making combinations and finding the patients. And a few years ago, I got some encouragement from Dr. Giles to keep the evaluations focused on prescribing and not just how much you know about chemistry behind the herbs. So they have to do, along with some test things, they have to do 20 case prescriptions for me. So every week on Signet, they have prescriptions to do. So one of the students this last term generously made the suggestion that Dr. Smith, you're so busy with the ND program, don't you think it would be better if we only had 15 of these to do, and you wouldn't have to do all this grading every week. You've got a kid. It's very thoughtful. But I feel like, I really love reading your faces. You're getting what you need. But there are points where it becomes unmanageable. I think with the small groups we see in electives, that helps. But can you properly evaluate them? So do you have enough in terms of time and your own energy? And then Dr. Johnson made this point very, very well. Is this something that you can teach with some authority? Have you published that case study or done some of that training? Can you present it accurately? Can you answer questions specifically? There's always things we'll need to go and look up, but if you're one chapter ahead of the gang there, they'll figure that out, and it'll be very uncomfortable. And I think most of us would reach for that, but it's interesting that can start to happen. I think just from being too ambitious, and how far out of your comfort zone are you? Student perceptions. This is something good to think about, one, because as professional educators, we do want to know what our student level of engagement is. We've had some good strategies about getting them to make it real for them, and that's really helpful. So it's important to know that, and because it is elective, so it's not a captive audience. If word gets out on the street that, wow, this was way too much information, or this course, I didn't come out of it with anything really good, you might find yourself with 3 people signed up or something like that on the end of that elective. And what did they expect from this? This rhino trying to get into unicorn condition here, we run into that too with the students' image of where they're going to be with a given amount of work. Sometimes it's not reality. As far as putting ourselves in the student's shoes, there's typical comments or perceptions that students are going to have of a course. We know from our experience with students that you can't please everybody. One of the things I like to do, if I do get a moment, my wife and I like to watch Chopped on the Food Network as a cook-off show. And when the dessert course comes up, there's always one judge who doesn't like sweet dessert. And there's another judge that loves sweet dessert. No matter what the chefs do, they're going to get criticized. This was cloyingly sweet, or I would have liked some more honey on this. And it's like that in the classroom a lot of the time. It doesn't invalidate student feedback, but it's never quite right for everybody. But these are the typical things you might hear about in an elective. This was way too much work for an elective, which makes you wonder what they were shopping for, but this is way too much work for an elective. This was really useful. This was just a rehash of what we got in the core curriculum. I think I understand what he's saying. I just don't know how he got there. This was fluff. It met my requirement, but it didn't have a lot of weight to it. The final thing is, in terms of evaluation, I haven't done an elective per se for a while. Lots of new classes in the A&D program. I don't think we have a policy that it has to be pass or fail, but we might have noticed that general trend. There's pros and cons to that. In one sense, it just makes it very clear they can do what you set up or you can't. On the other hand, some people motivate better if they can get that GPA effect. They can bring their GPA up doing well. Tests versus assignments, I think it comes down to what your course outcomes are. So if there's a particular skill, that's the point of your class, you need to see them employing that skill under certain conditions. And as we've heard, be as explicit as you possibly can. So hence, fabricating some of these instruments that might be publishable. in all of these things. I think we've got time over lunch and then beyond to look at how we write objectives for these topics, but I think today we'll get a chance to try it too.
I especially like people who are online to stay online, and we'll figure out how we're going to work your working lunches in the group. For the rest of you, lunch is downstairs in the cafeteria, and I've